Hey everyone, how you doing? Well, it looks like um, the signs I'm reading is coming pretty much coming true. What is happening in now in the Middle East war, staging two. I'm start reading, monitoring the next step, stage two. Many socialists with Christianity to be displaced from the center of American life. If the church must be allowed to exist, they want to confirm the realm of personal privacy. Hey, Mustang, how you doing? That is why public prayers must be forbidden. Christian influence in the public policy eliminates. Hey, Jinx, how you doing? Eliminates the Christian holiday uh, and skull them. The Christian must be excluded from the position of power and influence, including politics, entertainment, and the media, and so on. As a former MSNBC personal, Chris Matthew tweeted, "If you're a politician and believe in God first, that's all good. Just don't run for government office or run within academy, an institution, corporate, and public arenas. It's not enough for many scholars. They are determined to make Christian pay for the price, even when privately performing actions that conflicts the progress agenda." Well, kind of like right now, we are bombing Iran. Um, of course, Iran attacked. We attacked first um, to get eliminate the nuclear power, but now, um, what will be next from this? And this is where this guy who wrote this book, Dr. David Jeremiah, uh, he wrote this book and he read through every single on the Bible. Well, I don't think they're going to put boots on the ground. I think in one, how Nostradamus said in his quatrains of predictions, it said that the world powerful nations will use airplane, and that's what they've been using, military airplanes bombing, until that doesn't work. So pretty much if we decide to go to Ukraine and use our military planes, start bombing the Soviet Union in Ukraine and to get them back off, that's what they're using right now. It's no fly zone over there in the Arab region. And they were talking the other day. I was listening to how our fleet moved out of Bahram area where our ships were parked, and they were moved. So pretty much this guy who going through the Bible, that's what he's looking at. And the next one is that uh, being more powerful. So, for example, an intern at California University, Long Beach, was terminated from discussing her faith with coworkers, even though she didn't. She did it only in her off hours. As a manager in a national insurance firm, was fired from expressing his opposition to gay marriage. In the post he wrote online from his home computer, Brandon, chief exclusive Azalo, the website, was forced to resign when it was discovered he had personally contribute 1,000 to support California Position 8, which defined marriage as a union as a man and a woman. They're no all at war. Well, what seems like Trump is, like I said, I seen it in my dreams that Trump will start World War III. Well, here he is. It has started. when anybody elected him in that office again, I seen when he was in the first term that he would start World War III, fire and flames of him around, starting a war. Now, his second term, he has wanting to fight the South America area. He wanted to take over Iceland. So, between him and Putin, they are wanting to rule the world. And you got those people in North Korea. Kim's back in the limelight, and he's going to help Iran. So pretty much we are all between what I seen, some of the videos I seen last night. There were some people saw our missiles out west launching head towards Iran. So why are we launching our long range missiles here from the United States to launch to Iran? So people in the United States, some in Florida area, saw launching alarms going off. So it's going to be interesting the next few months here to see what it is. Hopefully our government, like he didn't ask our Congress for war, asked to go to war against Iran. He just went ahead and did it. So intimidation is what's going to be in the next chapter, next stage. Intimidation. In 2013, American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, sued Mercy Health Partners, a Catholic hospital, because it did not offer abortion service to the clients experiencing a difficult pregnancy, as noted in the National Review. The issue is not rather those who wish to avail themselves of a certain service will be able to, but that those who object to them must be forced to participate and join. In 2014, several Houston pastors encouraged Christians to sign a petition calling the referendum on the ordinance that allowed men and women to use another restroom. Houston city government under Mayor Annis Parker ordered 5 of the pastors to turn over all summons, text messages, and email addressing homosexual and gender issues. Refusal to comply would mean contempt of court and go to jail. Now, Mayor Parker later rescinded and subpoena in the wake of the nation's negativity reaction. 5th, litigation. Growing number of Christians are being taken to court, refusing to compromise their Christian conviction. And at the front line of the battle are small business providing wedding services. One of the most outrageous of incidents was a $135,000 fine levied against an Oregon bakery owner by a Christian couple who declined to bake a wedding cake for a lesbian couple. Many Christians have paid heavily for standing by their convictions. Some lost their life savings, others were forced out of business into bankruptcy, and several even received death threats by activists. Unless there is a major turnaround, we can expect lawsuits and judgment against Christians who practice their faith to escalate. And that's what the Middle East people, Iran has their own, they believe the Quran. So that's what people believe in. Over there, they believe the Quran. And there's people here, like they said, when Trump opened fire on Iran, you have those Islamic cell people here in the United States. Will they attack our country? Sleeper cells here in the United States, they might attack. I've seen that. A lot of Iranians cheering and waving Iranian flag, and they're happy that the leaders over there were killed, and several, And people in Iran on the ground, they're happy too that it has taken place. But the next question is, who will be the next leader? Will he be more evil next in line? Who are the people going to choose? That is to be the question. They could still get back from Russia. Russia be supporting North Korea. Between the United States and Russia, we are kind of like in a pocket on the pool. You don't know where that pool ball will go to. Will it hit us or hit our warships? So that's kind of like World War II. We get hit by Pearl Harbor, by Japan. So we could get hit by China, North Korea, and Russia all at once. Those three countries could come over to our side and start bombing our United States top region where our missiles are and nuclear power plants they can take out. So this is the prophecy between Nostradamus said. Like he said, history repeats itself. Look how many years it took. You had World War One, World War Two. We came close at World War Three when President Kennedy, with Iran, with Russia, with Cuba at that time. Before 1980s, there were multiple regions in Iran, like Jews. Yes, that's true, Jinx. That's true. So litigation. What happened to these people here in litigation? It's unbelievable. So the next story, the story of the Christian prosecution. Christianity has suffered several oppositions, can't talk right, from inception, beginning with Christ himself. He was plotted against, arrest, convicted, and rigged trial, stranded, crucified. He warned that the following him would mean several prosecutions consider his words to his disciples in Matthew 10. Behold, I send you out as a sheep in the midst of wolves. They will be delivered you up to council and scold you in their own way. You will be brought before the governors of kings for my sake. Brother will deliver up brother to death, and father his child. The children will rise against the parents, cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. Verses 16, 17 through 18, 21 to 22. Eugene Peterson wrote, God revelations of himself is rejected far more often than it is accepted. It is dismissed by far many people than embraced it, as has been either attacked or ignored, and by every major culture civilization in which it has given its witness. Why does this gift of salvation encounter such persistence? Option. It's because along the salvation comes submission to God. But since humanity fall, people have resist submission to any power outside itself. They demand freedom to define right and what's wrong for themselves. Christian behavior anger non-Christians because it makes them feel judged. In retrospect, the moral accountable that God planted in every human heart, but as Paul wrote, the existence of God and tenet of nature's law are too obvious to suppress. since the creation of the world, his invisible aptitude are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, so that they are without excuse. Roman 1-2:20. When Christianity arose, consensus of non-Christian, their responsible seldom to accept the message, but rather to silence the messenger. This is why the prosecution has been persistent and counterpoint in Christianity. Prosecution of Christian in the Bible. Now, prosecution in the New Testament began shortly after Christ's birth. Does not end until the final chapter, Revelation. Here are the few of most notable examples. King Herod, fearful of the reports that the prophet king had been born in Bethlehem, trying to protect his dynasty by killing all the males, babies, born there within the prophecy time frame. Matthew 2:1-16. John the Baptist, the first public proclaimer of Christ, was beheaded by Herod's son, Mark 6:25-29. The Jewish people, anger over Jesus' message, tried to kill him before his successful crucifixion plot. Luke 4:28-30 and 13:31. Now John 5:6-18, 7:1, so on. Peter and other apostles were arrested, beaten, and imprisoned for preaching Christ. Stephen was stoned to death for preaching Christ. The first Christian convert living in Jerusalem fled prosecution by the Jews' leader. Oh, you're welcome, Mustang. The apostles died violently death at the hands of their prosecutors, except John, who was exiled to the island of Patmos, Revelation 1:9. Paul was in prison, stoned almost to death, 5 times beaten with 39 stripes, 3 times beaten with rods, ran out of town, often hungry, cold, without adequate clothing. Soon as the Pontical coast, many Christians were forced to leave their homes and face imprisonment or death. Did this make them bitter, unhappy, or regretful? Hardly. Instead of mourning their fate, Luke tells us that they formed a flourishing, supportive community. The multitude of those who believed were one heart and one soul. Neither did anyone say that any of those things he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. With all the great power of the apostles, gave witness to comeback of the Lord Jesus. The great grace was upon them all. When Peter and John reported how they had been arrested, jailed, and warned never again to preach about Jesus, they pray, Lord, look on their threats and grant to your servants that with all boldness you may speak your words by stretching out your hands and heal. The signs and wonder may be done through the name of your holy servant Jesus. Prosecution increased their dedication and made their bolder in proclaiming the truth. It is an inspiring example for us today. Prosecution of Christian history. In the 1st century, Romans under Nero burned Christians on the stake and fed them to the lions for the arena entertainment later. Later, the Roman Empire declared himself to the Lord of God, execute Christians who refuse to worship him. Other emperors, nations, and religions also have taken up the word against Christian. 17th century, Japan made Christian illegal, expel, ministry, execute, covert. 18th century, China made Christianity legal and prosecute Christian severely. The French Revolution 1789 outlawed Christian. Clergy were banished or killed. Churches were eliminated, or embrace of Christianity were removed. The Ottoman Empire has a long history prosecuting Christian. An estimate Christians' death during the history of the empire ran as high as 50 million. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, churches and Christian teaching were made illegal. The state crucified all church property. Millions of descendants were executed. The prosecution of Christian in today's world. During 1 month in the fall of 2018, those startling headlines scream the news. At least 7 killed in an attack on Christian in Egypt. A handful of rotten corn. A day of the life of 50,000 Christians in North Korean prison camps. 80 lashes and other brutal sentencing of Christians in Iran. There you go. China shutters 6 more Christian churches and tear down crosses. There are not isolated events. Every month in the modern world, 255 Christians are killed. 104 Christians are abducted. 180 Christian women are raped, sexually harassed, or forced into marriage. 66 churches are attacked. 160 Christians are detained without trial in imprisonment. Yep, Jinx, it's correct. Unfortunately, the status like these fell to get attention of the most Christian in America. They seem in stark contrast to the life of a believer. In the United States, a modern-day American who have never lived in oppression, we're prone to take our freedom for granted. We don't face isolation from our family or friends, where we are denied access to the basic needs such as water, food, and health care. And we're not violent, abusive, imprisoned, or killed. Yet Jesus was asked by his disciples about the end of times and the sign of his coming. The prophets that there would not only be war, famine, and earthquakes. Well, we've been having earthquakes. And I just read that the war that we just started, Iran had an earthquake. I think it was 8.8 over there after we started the war. But the prosecution would increase, especially as his return approached. Matthew 24. That a certain happening on a global scale, and it appears as a seed of Christian prosecution are being planted in America as well. The side effects of the Christian prosecution. How should Christians in the United States react to the prosecution? Our first response might be natural, to be anger, but the New Testament gives us a more constructive response. The early Christians suffered several prosecutions, but we don't find them responding in anger. On the contrary, they found positive benefit in suffering. Paul told the Philippine church, to you it has been granted on the behalf of Christ not only to believe in him, but also they suffer his sake. Phil 129. Paul made suffering sound like a gift. Really, the nature impulse is to say, we like to return it, but to inject suffering, to miss out our enormous blessing. Let's explore just what this means. Suffering promotes character. A man comes to his pastor and said, Pastor, would you please pray that God will give me patience? 2 weeks later, he returned and said, good grief, Pastor, terrible things has happened to me. My life is coming unglued. Well, replied the pastor, you wanted patience, the Bible says tribulation works patience. So I pray that tribulation, God must be answering my prayers. Although persecution inflicts the enemies of God, He can use it to mold us into a greater Christ likeness. As Paul told us, we also glory tribute, knowing that tribulation preserves character, and character's hope. Rome 5:3-4. Contrary to what we often hear, the call to follow the Christian is not a call to easy life. As John Obert put it, God isn't at work producing the circumstance I want. God is at work in bad circumstance to produce the me He wants. Suffering provokes courage. Courage reflects Christ's character. In various circumstances, it is the crucial that Christian must deploy when facing culture demands that conflicts with the Bible teachings. Apostle Peter and John faced such a demand when Jews' leader hauled them into court and told them to cease preaching Christ. Peter and John reply, "Rather, it is right in the sight of God to listen to you more than God. You judge for what we can't speak, the things which have been seen and heard." After Paul's conviction, his life became sterling example of this kind of courage. As he wrote to the Philippines, "I eager expect and hope that I will in no way be shamed, but will have suffer courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exiled in my body, rather by life or death. For to me, to live is Christ, and die is gain." Suffer proves godlessness. A.W. Torsey wrote, "To be right with God has often meant to be in trouble with men." As Paul put it, all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. It matters of simple logic. Why would the enemy of Christianity bother anyone who is not deploying the nature of Christ? The writer of Hebrew said, "Whom the Lord loves, He chastens." Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones wrote, "If you are suffering from Christian, and because you are Christian, it is one of the surest proof you can ever have of the fact that you are a child of God." Suffering produce joy. When you realize the purpose of positive result of suffering persecution, it becomes a source of joy, as it was Paul and Silas when they encounter opposition in the Act 16:22-24. They were arrested, beaten, and thrown into prison. Then we read, at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Disciples were beaten in prison without trial, were so joyful they burst into song. This tells us that the source of joy is our relationship with God, and that relationship is affirmed when we courageously endure persecution. Well, I'm going to stop there. Hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Jinx Mustang, anybody else who was listening? Hey, thanks for coming. I'll talk to you guys all later. Bye now.